Hello, my friend. Sorry for that weird pause. I was just trying to find my mic. I'm filming this one kind of quickly because I'm going to work in about 20 minutes. So I'm gonna probably make this one like a 15-minute one. But for this one, I decided to just talk about how I got into the music uh medium, I guess. And how it all began. So, um, the way it started. Also, I'm very tired. So my head is not really thinking too straight. Um, it all started with kind of just me and my dad. Um, when I was really young, obviously I had no taste for music. The first time I can remember music being played was when I was about like 3 or 4. My dad had a lot of CDs. He still does. He just doesn't really use them. He's a big CD collection, and he would play stuff throughout the house for fun. It started with like stuff such as you know uh, Daft Punk, Orbital. What else could there be that I vaguely remember? Possibly some like Radiohead, um, Aphex Twin, possibly as well. Just a lot of that sort of area of music, not so much the Radiohead part, but the electronic, um, sort of ambient music. And it was something that I connected to inside, but not so much outwardly. It's not the kind of thing I really would have mentioned, um, or like completely understood. Um, One of my favorite tracks from memory was The Box by Orbital. But I didn't know any of these songs by name. It kind of changed. Um, it also was from me like hearing from the radio, from my mom's car. My mom played a lot of music like really early Taylor Swift, um, a little bit of this is a bit later, but Ed Sheeran's first album. And I still have a bit of a soft spot for some of his old music, but also just what's playing on the radio. So I kind of knew all the hits um, from Sound, a lot of early 2000s hits, um, a lot of, some of the only albums I was able to remember from cover alone was, Alice in Chains, Jar of Flies. I never knew what they really sounded like, but I was very aware of them. Um, Trying to think. It's hard to think in the morning. But yeah, music to me was like something I didn't really care for that much growing up, up until I was about 15 or 16. I decided to get a Spotify account. Oh, yeah, also, I listened to a lot of music incidentally from my dad, playing music while he worked, while I was on the computer next to him as he was playing. And there was just certain tracks I'd recognize, such as Depeche Mode and The Smiths. I also tried listening to Pandora with my mom's Nook. And if you don't know what a Nook is, it was the Barnes and Noble tablet. Um, Early in the inception of iPhones and touch screens and tablets. Um, and that music, again, I just sort of listened to. I didn't really acknowledge which ones I actually liked that much. And it was just kind of playing random tracks. Up until I got into oh yeah, when I finally got my own computer, I decided to get Spotify on both that and a Kindle I owned. I never had a phone until 2017, but I got a computer and a tablet in 2016. And I wrote down some songs that I knew by name from my dad, what music he was playing, and one of the main ones was The Box by Orbital, and that was probably the first song I got really into. Um, from the album Insides, which is a pretty good electronic album. I also like started listening to some Daft Punk because I constantly heard the name, and I liked Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and One More Time, and Around the World especially. And I started listening to some Daft Punk for the sake of nostalgia. And after that, um, I was like, oh, the Minecraft soundtrack is on Spotify. And I started listening to the Minecraft soundtrack of both Volume Alpha and Volume Beta. But also before that, I remember this as well. I was into the Geometry Dash. I played it a lot on my Kindle, and Geometry Dash is it wasn't Geometry Dash's soundtrack per se, but the custom levels had their own music playing. You know, for example, The Fat Rat was the one I listened to very often. A lot of his music was in Geometry Dash. I really liked the song Unity. That's definitely his most popular song. And it's possible you have heard it before. Also, the song Xenogenesis and not the Calling, what was it called? Monody. Nowadays, I think those songs are kind of a bit too goofy, a bit too ridiculous, a bit too awkward. They're not the kind of music I'd ever really unironically listen to ever again. They're a bit too like just trying to be cool, trying to be big. Um, but I do have some of a soft spot still for Unity and Xenogenesis. I do not like Monody though. That's a track I can't enjoy. Um, but when it comes to something like Daft Punk, that's something I still really like, and C418, two artists I would consider to be some of my favorites. Um, one of the C418 albums, I oh yeah, it's hard for me to it's hard for me to talk when I'm so tired, but there was a certain moment in time where I'd listened to C418 a lot, and I was like, he has so many releases on Spotify. He had stuff like Deef, um, 148, and oh no, it was 185. Sorry, um, yeah, those two, and then was it? No, it was 148. That was my bad. Um, what else? It was those and like 72 seconds of fame. And I was like, I'll give these other ones a listen because I want to hear what else this could possibly be because I only know him for his Minecraft soundtrack. And I instantly connected to Deep and 148. Those are two albums I really actually enjoyed, and I was surprised that I was able to find music I enjoy actively, and it was kind of cool. And I listened to those two albums so many times, and after a while, it took me to realize that 148 was probably my favorite album of all time for a long time, and I'd still consider it to be one of my favorites. It's very long, but has a lot of twists and turns and is excellent at being house music and also a bit of some dance music in there of ambient elements and synth elements. And I can still recommend it to a lot of people. Um, and then with Daft Punk, I eventually got into, well, obviously Discovery was the first one, but then, like Alive 2007 and the Random Access Memories. Alive 2007 was an album that was really exciting to listen to for the first time because I had listened to, Homework and Discovery and a little bit of Human After All quite often. So hearing this like compilation live set between each song was super exciting hearing each song come together. And that was a ton of fun. And then after hearing that, like I eventually slowly but surely realized I actually really enjoy listening to music. Um, and then those were like the main artists I really listened to. And as time went on, um, slowly and surely I kind of got burnt out with C418 and Daft Punk and it's hard for me to think of very many others. I listened to a lot of Discover Weekly on Spotify as well. So there was a lot of tracks there that I listened to, but I didn't really get into the actual artist's discography. Let me look at my Spotify likes real fast. Um, and just sort by the oldest. Um, yeah, so C418. Um, El Uervo, I kind of got into a little bit. And I still really like El Uervo. But it's a lot of just like random songs I've heard from other places. Justice, I really like Justice. I actually consider Justice to be another one of those artists I got really into due to my love of Daft Punk, um, as well as the Talos Principle soundtrack I really liked because I was into the game itself. Um, Lemon Jelly. Lemon Jelly was also an artist I was really into. Lemon Jelly, all three of their albums are amazing. But it's hard for me to talk about Lemon Jelly considering I'll probably do a retrospective on their music at some point here. Um, a little bit of tracks from Discover Weekly. The Hotline Miami soundtrack, both the first one and the second one, I really enjoyed. Um, and some synth um, music, um, the World of Warcraft soundtrack. Um, oh yeah, Boogie Belgique I started getting into, which I've lightly touched upon. And eventually I got into probably the first artist that got me really into music, of which was Gorillaz. I think the reason why I started listening to them was due to the fact that I listened to a lot of a podcast called Jar Media, of which featured the YouTuber I Hate Everything, his brother, and two of his friends at the time. Those two friends, one of them is missing, so it's only three of them now, but Jar Media would talk about things like Kanye West and Jar Media, and I held nothing but contempt towards Kanye West for a long time. And that was due to his music just being, well, first of all, rap, which was a genre I hated for a very long time, much to my friends' dismay. But nowadays, I actually really like rap. Um, a lot of ways, if you watch my vinyl video, some of my records, I only have like one physical rap album, but I'd love to own like actually two. It'd be JPEG Mafia, Scaring the Hose, um, and To Pimp a Butterfly. But I'll get into those two another time. And Untitled Unmastered. But I'd love to own stuff like Quaranta and Atrocity exhibition at some point, but um, once I got into Gorillaz, they would play, they would have little rap songs in there, but also as well as some rock songs, some trip was a lot of trip hop elements, but also some other stuff sprinkled in there, um, electronic bits, and the variety kind of got me wanting to hear more music from other artists. And The first album was the one I got really into, and then eventually I listened to Demon Days and liked that quite a lot. I like it a lot now. That's a 10 out of 10 album for me. And then I got into Plastic Beach. For a long time, that was one of my favorite albums, and it still kind of is. It was a very exciting listen, hearing certain bits I would recognize here and there, and that's kind of when I got into listening to full albums all at once. Was my listen of Gorillaz Plastic Beach. And then from there, um, I eventually got my first vinyl, which was Boogie Belgique's Nightwalker Volume 1. And yeah, it was kind of me sort of becoming an elitist album listener. A little bit of the Avalanches later on, and started listening to Radiohead. 07, which was a trip hop artist. I forgot to mention in a previous video. Um, El Huervo, I started getting really into, and yeah, it only went further from there. Metronomy was a little bit later as well. King Cruel. Oh, yeah, that was when I started watching Brad Taste in Music. That's how I got into King Cruel and certain specific artists like that. But I think him for getting me most into King Cruel, and couldn't be more um appreciative for that because he's one of my favorite artists. But yeah, um, this one was kind of just me turning on the camera and deciding what the topic should be off the cuff. Um, yeah, I have to go to work in like 2 minutes, so that kind of sucks. That's how it be sometimes. I hope you enjoyed me blabbering on for almost a week, a little bit over a week now, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye bye. Bye bye.